This super simple system was the difference between my business feeling like an endless grind and scaling effortlessly. It made business easy, removed the guesswork from my decisions, and suddenly everything clicked. My business started growing faster while I worked less. And when I gave it to my clients at selfmastery.co, they were able to take back control of their business, work less than 20 hours a week, and scale faster than ever before. So in this video, I'm going to show you how that system works and how you can use it to make business that bit easier. Let's dive in. Most people think business is hard because they're doing something fundamentally wrong, but really that's not it. It's not because you're lazy. It's also not because you're unproductive. It's because you don't have clarity on what is working and what isn't. So you're stuck making decisions based on instinct instead of insight, and that creates a vicious cycle where, for example, you launch an offer, you try something, you try a new marketing strategy, you try to hire somebody, whatever it is, and you're not sure if it's working. So, you change 3 things at once, but you still don't know if it's working. And so you end up back at square one, but now you're more frustrated, more reactive, and more uncertain. Plus, you've wasted a ton of time and capital. Imagine driving a car where the windshield is blacked out. You can hear the engine, you can feel the bumps, but you can't see the damn road. And that's what I see at selfmastery.co. Links in the description, by the way, if you want to work with me to systemize your business and personal operations so that you can scale with freedom. But that's what I see all the time with entrepreneurs, whether they're making 6 figures, 7 figures, or 8 figures. They're running their business. They're going full speed, but with no visibility. And here's the thing, right? If you don't know what's working, you don't know what to keep or what to double down on. And if you don't know what's not working, you quite simply don't know what to fix. So everything feels urgent, everything feels important, and you're constantly reacting, putting out fires and guessing with every single decision you make. But there is a system that solves all of that, and it's the same system that's transformed entire industries, actually the entire world. And it's called the scientific method. Now, I know you're running a business, not a science lab, but hear me out. Even if you're shit at science at school and you hated it, it's all good, okay? Because there is a reason that science uses this method. It's the most reliable way to make decisions and test or grow anything. It's incredibly simple, and it's incredibly applicable to business. Every major innovation in history, be it electricity, aviation, medicine, the internet, it was all built on this simple process, okay? You form an hypothesis, which an hypothesis is simply an idea of what you think will happen, why it'll happen. So in business, you essentially most of the time want to improve some sort of metric. So you form an hypothesis of, I think X metric will do Y if I do Z. And then you isolate a variable, as in you simply choose one thing to change in an attempt to improve the metric that you're concerned about. You then run the test and change the variable. Once the test is over, you measure the results and decide what to do next. Now, I know you're probably still like, how the fuck do I apply this to business, Ross? Well, here's how, okay? It's really simple. Let's say, your landing page is not converting at the level that you want it to. Well, instead of changing the headline, the offer, the images, the CTA all at once, you change just one thing. Let's say the headline, because it's the first thing people read, so if it doesn't grab them, they're clicking off the page, therefore it's going to convert crap. So if we change the headline, we make it a good one, more people read the sales page, more people convert, more people buy. You then run this test with the new headline for a set period of time, let's say 30 days. After the 30 days are up, you look at the data. Did the conversion rate improve? If yes, you keep the change, you keep that new headline. If no, you go back to the old headline, or you run the test again with a different headline. Now, there's a bit more nuance to this that you need to understand so this actually works for you and you do it properly, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. But look, this is the bloody beauty of using this system. You don't have to waste energy second guessing yourself anymore. You don't need to spiral into, was that the right move? You don't need to carry the emotional weight of every bloody decision in your business, because when you run your business on data, not emotion, instead of panicking and stressing over decisions and ideas, you just test them. It's like outsourcing your emotions to a scoreboard. You can stop making every decision personal and start making it predictable, and the impact that will have in your business, first in your ability to actually get results because you're now using data, but also in your ability to execute because you're no longer stressing over everything anymore, and your quality of life in general will just improve because you're not worried so much. So instead of overthinking your pricing or your funnel or your email strategy, just set a hypothesis, okay? Change one variable, track the data, and let the bloody results decide. This is how the top 1% think. They don't argue with reality. They don't stress over things that only data can provide an answer for. But there is two things that most people miss when trying to use this, and it's what actually kills your ability to grow predictably and to use this scientific method in a way that actually helps business. And look, the first one, the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make when trying to grow or run a test or a new strategy or whatever, is changing too many things at once. Because if you change 5 things, the needle might move, might improve, and might not improve, might get worse, but you've got no idea which variable, which thing you changed caused the improvement or the regression, or if it was just, luck. It's like cooking a new meal, right? And then swapping 5 ingredients at once. If it tastes better, which ingredient was it? You've no fucking idea, okay? And that's not a way to run a test. So now you can't replicate it. And worse, you've actually just added more chaos to your business. So here is the rule. You change one variable at a time. That's it. It's that simple. Now, you can potentially run multiple different tests to change multiple different metrics at once. It really depends on your business size, as in, do you have the bandwidth and people to run multiple tests at once? But also, it massively relies on the metrics you're trying to influence in each test being independent, as in, they don't influence each other, because there's no point in running multiple tests if the variables influence each other, because it's just like changing multiple variables in one test because you don't know what caused the change. So changing one variable is how you isolate cause and effect, so you can scale what works, kill what doesn't with actual confidence and not stressing. And that brings us to the second mistake. So you might be wondering, how long do I need to run these tests for, these experiments? And the annoying answer is, I have no idea. I don't know. Okay? I quite simply don't, because how long you run the test for depends on one word: throughput. Throughput is just a fancy way of saying the volume that flows through your system. The more throughput, or the more volume you have flowing through your business, the faster you'll get statistically reliable results. Because if, for example, 100 people see your sales page a day, it might take you 60 days or 100 days or whatever amount of days to get accurate data on your conversion rate. But if 10,000 people see your sales page a day, it might only take you a few days to get accurate data, okay? So with how long you run your test for, there's no real rule of thumb. Running the test for longer so that more data can go through it will always give you more accurate data, but at the same time, we want to be implementing our learnings as fast as possible, so we don't want to take the piss and, be running tests for 5 years. So really the best guideline I can give you is, for most tests, most experiments, run the test for about 30 to 90 days. If you have low data or low volume going through your system, run it for longer, closer to 90 days, so that the data is more accurate as you have more data points. But don't cut the experiments short just because you feel like it's working or not working. Trust the data and not your fucking mood. And when you do this, decisions don't necessarily become easy, but they become easier. And they definitely become less stressful, as you're not trying to make the bloody decision. The data is making the decision. Science is making the decision. Which, speaking of data, you need to obviously track it. Otherwise you can't tell if it improved or if it got worse during the test. If you're not tracking the right data, you're not running tests. You're just guessing with, a bit of style. That's why every system in your business needs a simple scorecard, which is essentially a spreadsheet where you can track all the metrics based on your system, so that you can see if they're improving, if they're getting worse, if they're staying the same, etc., etc. Where you can then, when you're running an experiment, like using the scientific method, you can make a comment on the date that you made the change in the spreadsheet. And then at the end of the test period, you can compare the data before and after the change to see if the change actually worked. And look, you don't need fancy dashboards to do this. You can simply do it in a simple Google Sheet. It's the best place to do it, and you can instantly see what's working, what's broken, and what to fix next. It's quite literally like putting your business on a diagnostic machine. So if you want to learn exactly how to build a scorecard that shows you the most important metrics in your business, so you can see in a glance what's working and what's not, click the video on screen now, and I'll show you how to build it.